Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and series and decide which movie is suffering the shame of being useless. I'm your host Griner, and joining me today...
I'm the mysteriously birthed avatar baby of Dr. Grace Augustine, and I see you.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and sooner or later, you always have to wake up.
Very deep. Yes. Boys, we're doing Avatar. We decided to jump in early, even though the third one's supposedly coming out next year. We waited this long for the second one. We thought, let's do a podcast about it. Now, before we get into Avatar, I have a question. Do you guys like 3D movies? Because I thought 3D had died, but then trying to get a screening for this movie at my local cinema, it was all 3D except for like a couple of showings. So I was really annoyed by that. I find 3D hard to see. It gives me a headache. I'm a miserable grouch when I have to watch 3D. Do you guys like 3D? Did you see this in 3D? How did you feel about the 3D trend that we had for those few years? Because I feel like Avatar is like the benchmark in 3D, right? Like it was supposedly the movie that made 3D worth it, but I never got it.
So I'll start first. I like actively dislike 3D. Not from any like bad experiences. I just feel like it would be a bad experience. So I have never wanted to watch a movie. Years ago, when the final Hobbit film was coming out in our local cinema, the first 2D session wasn't for 2 days after that movie came out, and I couldn't stand it. So literally, I drove three and a half hours away to watch that movie on release date, which was very disappointing. And then that was just to avoid it watching in 3D. Obviously, I think, you think of 3D, you think of Avatar 1. And there was a part of me that was curious to watch this in 3D because honestly, my only experience ever watching a 3D movie wasn't in the cinema. I'd gotten a TV that had like the 3D capability. I had the smart 3D glasses that like you turned on and everything.
Yeah.
And I watched Gravity in 3D on a big 80-inch TV. And I enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed that experience. I was like, oh, that was cool. But had this whole thing against it. And I'll just say, lining up to go watch Avatar 2, basically had heard this whole conversation play out with these guys behind me where they were like, oh man, yeah, do you remember the first one was in 3D? Like it was that. I'm not a 3D fan, but that one blew me away. I wish this one was in 3D. Not knowing, I guess, that the 3D session was later that night or the night before. Right. This was like Sunday morning. So I don't know. But he was like, oh man, I wish they did this one in 3D. I loved the first one. It was so cool in 3D. What happened to 3D films? And I was just, oh man.
So you've never seen a movie in the cinema in 3D?
No, because I always thought I would go there and they would give me a plastic white set of glasses with red and blue. Is that still?
It's polarized. It's not red and blue, but yeah, it's basically the same idea.
I picture
by all accounts, glasses. Those TV ones are way better, but
yeah.
I feel like there was like a solid 2 or 3 years though where every movie was in 3D, even though it wasn't filmed in 3D.
It was really hard to see a 2D movie there for a while.
Yes, yeah, I saw a bunch, and I had like a stack of 3D glasses in my old car, in the glove box, and I opened it up. I'm like, I've got 15 of these because I keep forgetting them. And yeah, and that's kind of the bad experience that everyone had because every movie just tacked on 3D. Yeah, so I remember seeing like Toy Story in it, and there's like a handful of scenes that they're just like, oh look, this one's 3D now. And even like, Mad Max Fury Road, I remember had a couple of scenes that were very much filmed to be 3D. Like things fly out the screen. But again, it's like, they're doing a couple of things. 3D technology is like James Cameron and he's what he does, right? He's the best at what he does and he pushes the benchmark and he actually uses things, interestingly enough. And then everyone else kind of follows suit for 10 years and does it crappier. And that's kind of why then James Cameron's like, no, you can actually use it properly. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it can work. But then no one either wants to or knows how to do it properly. And even though 3D, and I don't care for 3D at all. I think I didn't see Way of Water in 3D. I intentionally found a screening that wasn't because the only ones here that were doing it were VMAX high frame rate 3D. And I'm like, I'm not sitting through that dumpster fire.
Apparently that makes it better, but anyway, teach his own.
I was going to say, like, I honestly contemplated it and I decided if I really enjoyed it in 2D, I would go again and watch it in 3D to just see what it was like. But there was no way I wanted to experience a film for the first time in 3D.
Yeah. My thing is, like, if a film can't stand up without the bells and whistles like that, then it shouldn't. Then it shouldn't have that as a merit towards it.
I mean,
So I was like,
yeah, it's
Yep.
basically the definition of a gimmick, right? Like 3D is
Yes.
1,000,000% a gimmick. I don't think anybody feels like they're in the movie or anything like that.
No.
Like, that's why for so long it existed at theme parks like Movie World, where you'd go and watch a 3D movie and they'd blow water on you when the dragon sneezes or whatever. Like,
And there's a couple of cinemas that do 4D. Like a friend of mine
Yeah.
saw the original one this year in 4D, where like they splash water on you and you get the glasses.
yeah.
And he said he enjoyed it. It wasn't mind blowing, but it's a cool experience. And I feel like that's kind of where it needs to be. Having 3D just in the movie itself serves no purpose in my mind.
Yeah. Especially when it's not designed around it.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's get into the movies in question. Do you guys want some stats?
Yes.
These are
Stats.
There's some wild stats for the original Avatar. Budget of $237 million. Made $2.9 billion. Back on top, the highest grossing film ever.
It's a good investment.
It is. A lot of people attribute that to the 3D, the price of 3D tickets being more expensive, but there's no denying it. It's a juggernaut of a box office figure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, were 3D tickets not like $60, $70 in America? Then?
I don't know. I think they're about twice the price everywhere, right? Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a third again of the price. Yeah. Avatar: The Way of Water. Obviously, we don't have years and years of stats for, but budget of estimated $350 million. That's a hell of a lot of money. So far has made $441 million after its opening weekend.
Profit.
Well, I think in the film industry that's definitely not considered a profit, but.
No, so Cameron said him. So I'm going to call him Big Jim because
Big Jim. I've read this recently. Yeah,
that's all the podcasts talk about. So Big Jim has said if it doesn't beat the original one, so make over 2.9 billion? You said
something. Yeah, 2.9.
So if it doesn't make 3 billion, it doesn't break even with the amount of money they put into. Because I guess he's filmed the third film already.
Yeah,
and obviously they've had to create technology. So I don't know if that's been budgeted into this. So yeah, I think 3 billion is what he's saying they need to make to break even. Which is
that's some high expectations, Big Jim.
Yeah.
And I've been reading different things saying, it's an incredibly good opening weekend on paper, but then other things have said it's still a lot more disappointing than what it should be to meet its targets. So I think it's too early to see, and you got different things like Top Gun obviously had an incredibly long life, but then looking at something like Wakanda Forever had huge opening weekend and then a real drop off. And that's generally the trend now, I think. But Avatar is Avatar's more of a Top Gun that will be at the cinema until 2024.
You guys feel like Avatar, a bit like Top Gun, gets an older generation into the cinema too? Like, I remember the original Avatar was packed with people and it was all age ranges. I don't know if this has that appeal. I definitely saw people in the cinema who I work with who are older than me and who I wouldn't consider movie people very much. I don't know, was that your experience in your screenings?
So I was curious about, because I know with Top Gun, it was very much like a surreal experience and being like, oh my God, look at all these people here. And they were along for the ride. It wasn't so much like that for Avatar for me. I didn't go opening night or anything. I think it was the third day here and it was a Sunday morning session. I went to church and then went and saw Avatar and just it was probably still half full. It was only the front few rows that was empty, but the rest were pretty packed. I had someone sitting 2 seats next to me, which is really uncomfortable and close to me. How rude. I picked that spot because there was no one on my row.
Remember the COVID days?
I know, right? But I don't know. It seemed like it was not a Top Gun experience for me. It was just people just there. It was more Marvel, I felt like, for me personally, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I saw mine yesterday afternoon. So it was a pretty bare. The cinemas here are showing 8 of the 10 theaters they have open are showing Avatar. So it's really just that. So there's so many screenings, so many that are doing the bigger features and stuff. So mine was intentionally one of the smaller ones in one of the smaller cinemas. But there was a family in front of me, had a couple of school age kids obviously out on holidays. That's cool. I really look forward to taking my family to the movies when they're old enough to appreciate it. So it's cool that someone else still does that. But I think it's kind of just a trend of where movies are going. Movies are becoming more of a experience thing, right? Where it's what do you do on the weekend? Oh, I guess we can go and see a movie, or you'd go to the beach, we'd go to the park. And so I think for that to happen, it needs to be a film that's like there's a reason to go there. There's buzz about it, and Top Gun was that because it was like a big legacy sequel.
Yeah.
Had Tom Cruise, and then reviews were really positive, and it became a word of mouth sensation. And Avatar is the same thing. Like Big Jim just puts bums in seats, and Avatar was like that's shorthand for a certain type of movie, right? Everyone saw the original Avatar. And so I do feel like most people will. This is the kind of movie that you'd be like, what do we do this weekend? I guess we can go see Avatar. Whereas, no one's going, oh, I guess we go see Barbarian, or I guess we'll go and see, this, Doctor Strange.
Strange World.
Yeah, so no one's seen Strange World. I don't think people will see Avatar. It's one of the few films that still has value just because it's it's part of like the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Did both of you guys watch the original Avatar in the cinema?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
I didn't
watch it in the cinema.
I feel like I saw it with school. I don't know if that's accurate, but I feel like I saw it with school.
I think yeah, our school went to watch it. I didn't go. I didn't watch it in the cinema. I waited till it was on Blu-ray and watched it on Blu-ray.
I went opening night and it was just absolutely packed out.
Yeah. People are excited for Big Jim. What's it like watching it on Blu-ray, Luke? Did you have a good experience at original time?
I mean, like this is 2009, like young Luke with in his parents' house in a small little bedroom with an 80-inch TV that he got in debt for. It was basically a cinema experience for me. It looked really good on Blu-ray on an 80-inch, like with me 1 meter away from it. It was basically IMAX. And I had my headphones on. Like I enjoyed the experience. But yeah, we'll get into my thoughts on the movie soon. But
you didn't watch it on your smartphone, like in the shower, the way God intended.
The way Big Jim intends. No.
Yeah, that's how he likes it. Okay.
All right, critical response. The original Avatar, 83 on Metacritic, pretty high.
Crazy.
Avatar: The Way of Water, 68 on Metacritic. Still kind of high.
Yeah.
Still kind of decent score.
Like, this is also a trend with critics, right? And I respect this, where films come out and they do something different. They become a bit of a groundbreaking thing in the medium. And so they respect that. They did it with, I think we've talked about it 1,000 times. Like, Black Panther has a Metascore of 88. I don't think it deserves that. And we could argue that, but we already did on a previous episode. Listen to that if you're interested.
So check it out.
But these films happen that are like, they're important. They come out and they go, yes, they have an impact on the medium. They are relevant to society, blah, blah, blah. And Avatar, like it or hate it, was that. Like it was a big thing. And so I think critics were just like, we've never seen anything like this. And that deserves praise. And I sort of get that. It's an interesting case study as time passes. But that Metascore is that Metascore is a relic of its time.
Yeah, let's talk about as time passes. The original Avatar, a paraplegic marine dispatched to the moon Pandora on a unique mission, becomes torn between following his orders and protecting the world he feels is his home. Do you guys feel like this movie has much of a legacy? Like, what was its impact over time on cinema? Because I think 3D was its legacy for a while, but obviously that's fizzled out, that's died off. I don't think anybody is making movies like Big Jim. Nobody is making movies that are so CGI heavy, so technology heavy. Like, I guess maybe that's because nobody else can afford to. I don't know. What do you guys think is the legacy of Avatar?
Like, I'd say the legacy was just, its box office numbers, 3D, and that like it was known as like the standout like CGI film. Like this looks photorealistic and lifelike, and I'm sure now, like thinking back, that it was just this like rumor that went on the the dark webs and MSN Messenger and stuff like that. But I remember in high school people being like, "Man, there's people out there being so obsessed with they want to go to Pandora, and they're taking their own lives because they can't live in Pandora, and they're so obsessed with this world."
Apparently that is a thing. Like,
I remember that rumor, yeah.
And I was just like, I used to spread it too. Like, people would tell me, I'd be like, oh shit, I'd start telling people like, oh, be careful watching Avatar too many times, you'll get hooked. But for me, like, I don't know, like, I think for me, and probably a lot of other film critics as well, I'm not a film critic, but hey, my main thing when I think of Avatar, I think overrated.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
it shouldn't be the the highest grossing movie of all time. Has always been my opinion for years. I didn't watch it for a second time for over a decade until this year.
I
And that
don't
was my
think
second
anyone
viewing.
else did. Yeah.
And I had no desire to, all this time.
But that's not true.
But-
its box office numbers keep going up. Like, it has been re-released
Sorry,
more
yeah.
than once.
No, you're right. I take
And
that back.
it keeps going up. I don't know why, but it happens. But
Maybe
I
it's
agree
all
with
just
the
people who
overrated comment.
Maybe they just missed it the first time. Maybe it's all
Maybe.
like it's everyone's mum, and they're like, oh, I should see that movie. I guess now that it's here.
There's all these undiscovered tribes that have been discovered since then who hadn't gone and seen it. Yeah, they're all going to the cinema.
Big Jim comes out of the ocean and goes, I brought you salvation in the form of my movie. Yeah.
Or it could be, the clones of the people that died between then and now. They're awakened and they want to go and watch it.
It's just Big Jim. He's fun. He's buying tickets himself, just out of his personal money to pump the numbers up.
Got to be an game.
I feel like it seemed like this thing that just became a joke on the internet of like, oh my God, he's making Avatar 8 as well. Like, it's just like for years I've heard of all these Avatar movies. I wasn't ever sure we were going to get a second one. And then it was just like all of a sudden, Way of Water comes out this year. And then number 3 next year. It's like, man, what the hell? Like, this has been a long time. We've had basically the entire MCU from Iron Man came out the year before Avatar, and we got, Infinity War, Endgame, all that years ago. Like, it's pretty crazy to think about what's happened in cinema since then.
Yeah. Like it's got a really almost problematic legacy. Like, on one hand, I think the general consensus was overrated. At the time, everyone was like, it looked amazing, but very quickly they forgot about it. And, listening to podcasts, reading reviews, looking at like essays, everyone said the same thing. Like, it's the movie that time forgot, and that everyone saw it, but no one talked about it. It had and they're saying it had no cultural legacy or impact. It became redundant. And I think, ironically, it's actually swinging back around now, which really pisses me off. But now a lot of people are like, no, it is actually a really good film. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a good film. Avatar 1 is not good. Avatar 2 is not good. But as time passes, people start to soften on things. And I think people are now being contrarians and going, oh, no, we were a bit harsh. So it is a great film. But I think its legacy is that ironic. It changed so much, but at the same time, what it sort of changed was like, you can do this if you have $200 million to spend on this.
Unlimited budget.
And the name of James Cameron, which is a very powerful name. And no one does. So, and I think that speaks to the fact that this movie did nothing else. It changed no one's lives except these people who apparently had post-Avatar depression.
I'll just say, like, honestly, I said this to my wife a couple weeks ago. He's like, I feel like Avatar, everybody watched, nobody remembers.
Yes.
In a weird way. Like, they remember like stuff, but there's nothing memorable other than you can think of the entire plot when you think of the movie like in 2 seconds almost. And it's just like, okay, there's nothing. Who are those characters' names? I don't know. Like, it's like, I don't know.
What? Quaritch.
Jake
that's right.
It's Jake Sully.
Yeah, it's funny if you think about the directors that have the names that could probably pull those budgets. None of them are interested in making this sort of movie, right? Like, they're all very much wanting to do practical things. Use CGI sparingly, use it the way that works really well. Like, you think about, I don't know, I kept thinking about Mad Max Fury Road when I watched this movie, and just because honestly, I feel like Avatar 1 doesn't really hold up.
Yeah,
visually, it looks like a Pixar movie now.
It looks a little weird, like their faces. It looks weird. It's like, oh, this is bad. Like, there's early day CGI, like
bit of Uncanny Valley going on now.
Yes, 100%.
And I just could not help but think about like Top Gun Maverick and the practical visual effects that will look just as good in 100 years, like
forever. Yep. Avatar won't.
Does
it now? It's
Like, and part of me wants to rewatch the original one, like Blu-ray, 4K Ultra HD on a massive TV to see, because I streamed it on Disney. There was never any moment that I was like, oh, this looks bad, but I was never like, I'm immersed. I was always, like, I was like, this is a really good animated film.
Yeah.
And so I never felt problematic, but I think they also kept me from really investing, because I was like, why am I watching this movie that's trying so hard to make me think it's real when it's so clearly not?
Yeah.
Like, what's achieved here that isn't achieved better in animation, or just I know even just like crappy CGI can still tell a good story.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like I feel like this movie, he's kind of tame with what he can do with CGI too. Like there's no, I don't know, maybe he's trying to base everything in realism, but there's all these moments, particularly early on when you first meet Natiri, where she's like, she jumps in to save Jake from those little dog things. And he does like a slow-mo shot of her jumping this far off the ground. Like she's not doing a big backflip and firing a bunch of arrows or doing something really cool that you can only do in CGI. She's literally jumping into the scene really lamely. And I'm just like, why is this... it just doesn't look good. There's nothing really cool about the action because of the CGI. I just don't... I don't feel it. I don't care about these blue people.
No. And I feel like we all have like a third eye because we've played video games, and we're like, I've seen more impressive like moves and stuff in CGI or like stuff like that. Not necessarily better graphics, but like more like cool action scenes like that. All these people who don't play video games, these oldies, are just like, wow, look at the blue person jumping with a bow and arrow. Like this is impressive.
I reckon you're onto something. I do want, because all the podcasts that I listen to about it are like, they're clearly not video gamers, because they always kind of talk about video games with a detached sort of sense of, knowledge about it. But I think you're right. I think there's a sense of like the general mass, and I use that. I don't mean that in a harsh way. I mean that is just like your average person who doesn't play many video games or is a bit older or a bit younger, whatever, who doesn't have the same exposure that someone like us would probably be really impressed with this because they hadn't seen this. Mm-hmm. But if you're playing video games a lot, you've seen all this before.
Yeah.
And like, to your point, there is nothing different. Like you think about the all the Disney live action films, and they constantly get shit because they just like, why do you want to see a lion that can't express itself? Mm. It's like, no, the whole reason why the animated film works is because they've got expressive animals, and that's kind of that's cool. And that makes you think, it makes you relate to it because it's got humanistic features, but it's also different enough that you go, I'm immersed. I had the same thought. I'm like, they're not different. They're tall and they're creepy looking because they're really gangly.
Dude, I forgot Lion King was remade in live action, and I watched it. Like, I just unmemorable.
It's so bland.
Didn't like literally a Pinocchio live action come out this year, and nobody cared about it. They keep doing it. I don't know what their problem is.
Disney just doesn't have. They don't know how to spend their money. They have too much money.
Yeah,
quite literally, and they're like, we'll have to pay tax on this if we don't just spend it on things.
I'll just say, like, to touch on that quickly again, like that's something I found is when I watched it again, I watched it on my OLED. Not Blu-ray. I streamed it through Disney. I don't have that Blu-ray anymore. But like, straight away my thought was like, oh wow, this doesn't hold up. I remember thinking this looked impressive, and I'm like, when like Thanos looks better, obviously, than like, and obviously this is technology 10 years later, but like Thanos, I think, is a very impressive CGI character. Like the expressions, all that. This is uncanny, where like they have the teeth showing, and there's too much teeth, and like they're smiling. And it's just like, I don't know. Yeah.
There's a few moments for me, like that opening scene where it shows the base and there's all these robots and people walking around, and he's rolling out in his wheelchair and they're wearing the masks, and there's like the reflection on the masks and stuff. And it just so reminded me of a Pixar movie. It's just like, there was nothing impressive about that scene. And then the first time he's in the Avatar and he runs outside and he's like getting the dirt between his toes.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. I can see why he's done that. That was impressive back in the day. It just doesn't look that great. Like it really doesn't. It's nothing impressive about it.
But I remember at the time, I remember having an argument with a friend coming out of this movie, and he was like, amazing. And I was like, what's good about it? He's like, because you can't see these things in real life. I'm like, what? And I couldn't fathom it. I was like, why is like a blue foot getting immersed into dirt that fast? Why is a flower that sucks into itself life-changing to some people? And I do not understand it. And even like now it's even worse because the effects look slightly dead. But even at the time, I'm like, a giant mech suit walking, it's cool, but it is not like, it's not unseen. Like we've had Aliens.
I prefer watching the one in Aliens. Like there's something mechanical about the one in Aliens. It's fun to watch.
It feels real. Like it feels like, I don't want to see that in my real life. Like watch Planet Earth in 4K. That's way more like mind blowing. I feel like than any of this stuff. But
I feel like, especially in The Way of Water, there is about an hour and a half that is just Big Jim making that.
I mean, we mentioned the story, is very, very bland. Do you guys have anything to add to that? Like, I feel like Unobtainium is such a strange
God, you got me brought up.
Boring name.
Unobtainium. Oh my
Like,
god! And do they ever say what it does? It's just like this is worth this amount of money.
No.
Like it's just so
It's a
basic. Like,
MacGuffin.
of course, like
yeah, it's as valuable, bro.
oh, and their trees right over the top of the best one. Like, oh, I don't know. It's just like it's so cliche. Everything about this movie is so generic and cliche. I feel like, but
Like
yeah.
the story, on one hand, the story almost needs to be this way because from a business point of view, right? He's got to make this movie as accessible as he can to everyone. And so if you make a complicated spy narrative or like a taut revenge thriller, or I don't know, if you make a movie, if he makes Terminator again, or if he makes a war movie like Aliens, and this sort of is a war movie, but it's a little bit more of just like a romance drama. Like Titanic was the same. Titanic is like is a spectacle, but it's framed with a romance so everyone can get into it. I think this is the same. The story is so basic and bad because he's like everyone can relate to this story because we've seen it 100 times. And I really hate that choice. I don't like pandering.
Yeah.
But I guess I understand why he did it, but that doesn't make it okay.
I get it, but I don't know. I think he underestimates the audience a bit, perhaps too. Like, there's a whole lot of Jake Sully voiceover just dumping info on you all the time.
It is unforgivable.
Yeah,
that voiceover. It is the most enraging, egregious shit I've ever heard. There are scenes where he is just like, what? He just states blatantly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell are you telling me that for? I can see you doing it. Or rather than just having a simple scene of doing anything, there's like, I'm feeling lost. I'm like, nah, just look out the window and we can get that, dude. I can't figure out why the hell there's a voiceover in this movie.
I mean, he largely abandons it in the second one, which is the right choice. But yeah,
there are bits of it still. It does come back.
There are. It does, but it's egregious here.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about Sam Worthington? Big fans. I don't know why James Cameron's really in love with him. I'm not sure because I had to look up his filmography. He hasn't really done anything amazing.
He was like the Hollywood golden boy for 2 years when he got like Terminator Salvation and this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, right? Oh, sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say, now we've just been waiting for now he's back because Avatar 2 is out now. And it's like, oh, that's right, it's him as the lead. It's like, yeah. Like
he's genuinely awful. His accent is all over the place.
It really is. Yes.
There's no. Yeah.
Why can't he just be Australian? Like, I mean, maybe he can't be a lead if he's Australian. Maybe that's the problem. But I don't know.
But like, we have actors who can do American accents.
That's true too.
It's not hard to do. Like, there's plenty of British actors who can do it. There are plenty of Australian actors who can do it.
Yeah. Who would you cast as the lead of Avatar to get through this franchise?
The thing that came out recently was Matt Damon turned down the role, and he could probably do it, right? Like, I mean, Matt Damon can do anything nearly.
What's most interesting? He would have had profit participation.
Yes,
he would have made over like $1 billion if he had starred in this film.
He would have retired by Avatar 2.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have had to do those. He wouldn't have had to do those crypto ads he's doing. Which...
man, I don't know. I can't picture Matt Damon as an Avatar. It looks weird in my head. Like, you got to picture him as an Avatar.
He would have been better though. Like, Sam Worthington is a bad choice. He's not a. I think the fact that his career's kind of done nothing besides this is like, it says a lot. Because after this, he made these like Man on Wire and the Texas Killing Fields. He made these really B-grade generic films.
Clash on Titans movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was in that.
Oh my god.
Clash of the Titans. Yeah.
He's just done nothing because he's not good.
I'm not a big fan.
No.
I think Zoe Saldana is I think she's a good actress. I don't know that she's fine here too. I think there's some weird, there's some really weird broken English stuff here. Like, she can barely string together a sentence at the start of this movie, and then 3 seconds later she's articulate and using metaphors, and like, it's so all over the place. It's very frustrating to watch.
Should we have a conversation about if this movie's racist?
Yeah, like, there's such a big white savior complex in this film, and I don't know how it gets away. Like, I don't know why it hasn't. I don't know. I haven't heard it talked about very much.
No, because if you do, you get silenced.
By Big Jim
finds you. Big Jim
By
finds
Jim,
you.
Big Jim finds you.
They kick in your doors. Bunch of blue people and take you out. Like it's definitely weird. Like Jake Sully comes in and becomes part of the tribe and I don't know, and saves the day obviously and becomes their leader and becomes Jesus Christ. Like flies in on their thing and is the second coming and it's like of course he is. He's from Kansas. Like
he's a Marine. Hoorah.
He's a Marine. Hoorah. He's trained for this. He knows how to do this.
Yep.
Oh, and then it gets worse in this. I don't know. Yeah.
It's weird, right? Yeah, there's a lot of articles written about it. There's a lot of people a lot of small groups that are very critical of it. There's a lot of defenders of it as well who, I was reading a few essays before this and one of the most interesting things I read was this interview with some film critic. I was talking about how the movie's wrapped in James Cameron's white guilt and how it's clearly him trying to be look how evil white people are. All the humanity's coming, why would humanity's coming? He even said it's not meant to be subtle. It's clearly a colonial metaphor.
Yeah.
But he's clearly being look, white people are evil. They come in and destroy nature. Nature's great. We've got to be in touch with the planet. But there's something so sort of gross to me about that when it's but then a white man could learn his errors and fix that, can save these people who I'm saying are better but need a white person to be saved.
Yeah.
But also then the fact that he's just spending all this money on technology and machines and try to explore the earth and scour it. He's but then he's but you should be more in touch with nature. You shouldn't worry about machines, guys. They're bad. But I'm going to spend so much more money than anything.
But my movie needs to make $3 billion.
Exactly.
Be profitable.
Just so you guys
I could have solved world hunger twice.
A little bit.
Planet. Yeah.
There is something to really say that I'm he could have done it. Yeah, if he really cares that much. So, and there's a whole all the Na'vi are people of color, and there's a lot of chopping and changing of different cultures to make a convenient thing. It's is that respectful to them?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something definitely didn't sit right with me in a 2022 world.
Yeah, it's strange, and I don't know that it gets much better in number 2, but we'll get there.
No, because it goes to a different culture.
Yeah, but it's a different indigenous culture. It's not
they're called the Maoris.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah. And the white man learns their ways too and masters them.
Exactly. He's the master of all the native peoples. Dear. All right. Plugging your ponytail, that is your sex organ, into animals to ride them. I don't know. There's something really creepy about that. My wife and I were just joking about that the whole movie. Every time he plugged into an animal, he's really
What makes it way creepier is their pupils dilated, being
animal
being oh shit, this is good, and every time, I don't need the animal being oh, this is amazing. Every time you plug your ponytail into it, it's just.
There's a lot of shots of it, hey? To remind you of oh yeah.
Even the second one, sea creatures, just their eyes, oh god, this is great. Yeah. But
I remember back in when it came out, where people were taking the piss, right? This is weird that they have sex with these things, but they also connect with animals. What exactly is the deal? It still remains weird, for 15 years later.
Yep.
I don't know if he's he must have been aware of it though, right? He must have seen it and been this is people are gonna take the piss out of this.
It's a bit weird.
It's a movie about connection, right? So I don't know. You could see the metaphor there between sex and connection and it gets weird when you start playing with the connection between yourself and nature. I don't know. It's a really mixed metaphor. It's kind of weird to think about.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. What do we think of the spirituality of the film?
It's fine. It just doesn't have... It has nothing to say other than nature good. It reminds me of Captain Planet when I was a kid, right? It's just there's... It's just there's no nuance. It's just pollution bad, Captain Planet good. Yeah. Gaia's gonna tell us how to save the planet. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't have anything interesting to say.
No, it's kind of my bigger issue with the whole, it's taking bits and pieces from like all sorts of indigenous cultures, but it's heavily based on Native Americans. And I think he went to like Amazon tribes or South American tribes, I think. I know he said it before, but yeah, his kind of takes bits. He's like, yeah, it all sort of boils down to nature good, and like you like say, yeah, nature good, progress bad, which again is it gets rid of all the nuance and all the interesting pieces of cultures and why they exist, and it's just like it just hammers it into the most simple sort of form you can take and go, oh yeah, yeah, cool trees are cool.
Like and I don't know, the bad guys are just pure evil. Like there's very little redeeming of the bad guys, right? Like they just totally destroy their home, just strip mine the earth. Like it's just like I don't know. There's no nuance there either. There's no there's a good side to these guys. They're doing something with the money that's helping so many people. Maybe they do need to. It's just there's nothing. It's just pure greed, pure corporate greed equals bad. Which is fine, but it's just there's no nuance. There's nothing interesting to say.
Millions of people watched it and they're like, "That's horrible," and then walked outside and watched it happen in real time and not care.
Yeah,
walked outside with their Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
and got in
their
their
Starbucks
brand
and
name
knocked
cars.
over some local village.
But they were like, "Don't worry, I'm not like that. I would save the indigenous populations if I."
They're like, "Man, humans are evil. I'm going to go work for a corporate company."
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else to add about Avatar 1?
No, I'll talk about an Avatar 2.
I love Sigourney Weaver. She can be in anything. That's fine.
She's so wasted.
Yeah, she's pretty boring. If you want to talk about Sigourney Weaver wasted, the Avatar with The Way of Water. Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed on the extrasolar moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with Neytiri and the army of the Na'vi race to protect their home. That is literally the same plot as the first movie, based on that summary alone.
Yes.
So I didn't watch many trailers heading into this one, so I don't know if this was like a thing that was revealed or what it was. I tried so hard not to laugh in the cinema when I was like, they've literally just brought the Marine back and cloned him. Like, this is the stupidest shit ever. Like, Grana, like, I was just like,
this
are you
is a very
kidding
common
me?
plot, though. This happens all the time in movies.
Back. Like, all the Marines are just like, hey, bro, we're back. Oh, my God, what is this? Oh, here's the videotape I recorded. Oh, hopefully you're never going to need me. But this is what happens if we ever do a sequel.
I loved
10 years
that.
later, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, then it really is just the first movie again. We're dealing with the same villain. I don't know. And how many are we going to go through with him? Is it going to be 5 or 6?
Oh yeah,
he's going to have a redemption arc.
Colonel Quaritch is like the second lead now.
God damn. Well, he's just as good as Jake. He does the unthinkable that they haven't been able to do for a millennia as well, and he just uses his marine skills to wrestle a beast down. But
look, at least his accent is on point the whole movie.
Yes,
this is a very common, plot, right? Like we've seen this in movies a lot. You can call it lazy. I don't know. You can really call it bad. It's just been done a lot.
I just felt so cliche. I was just like, oh my God, of course they are.
Like there's a lot of cliche like sci-fi tropes in this. Like the tape where it's like, hey, if you're seeing this, I'm dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, but here's all the information you need to know. It's like, well, that is a convenient exposition dump. It's kind of necessary it can be necessary for a sci-fi world, right? To be like, here's all the stuff you need to know because I have to journal. And it can be done okay if the rest of the movie sort of is good. Like those occasional moments of exposition can be acceptable, but when it's all lazy, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
Like, and I had the same thought with this. I'm like, I couldn't believe they were bringing him back. I'm like, I would have at least like thought it would have been cool if you could do something like somehow his body went into Earth, got absorbed by the Earth tree. He was like reborn as an actual native Na'vi.
I mean, they literally did that with another character, right?
Yes. Yeah. So why not? Why can't you do it with the rest of them and then explore
make a Na'vi that's sympathetic to the humans and like have him build up a mercenary army of of people against the Na'vi. Like that would be interesting. Have a civil war, right? Like,
yeah, like I thought they were kind of going to go down that path originally because there's like he's a splinter group. So okay, is there tensions there, whatever? Like he could have done it so many other ways, but.
Yeah,
it really was just like, no, don't worry, we conveniently cloned you. And you had a son apparently hanging around the base that was
everyone had
that you just did not care about. Nobody cared about. They just left him behind. It's like, I thought you got a pod back to Earth. Nah.
You should have known that you couldn't be friends.
Poor little Tarzan.
Yeah. Yeah, Spider was, I don't know, he was okay.
He was fine. He was actually fine. I don't know.
It's a real James Cameron trope, like that, the native kid.
Yes. Like he's the spitty image of Newt from Aliens.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
one thing that like I was surprised at, and one thing I kind of dig is that like is it Natiri? She's kind of just like racist as well, and she's just like, no, I don't trust him. He's a human, and like, I'll kill him. Like, and you believe her. Like, she would kill Spider, even though he's grown up around her kids, and like they treat him as her family. She's almost twisted around with the Marine as like she's the villain almost in that scene, and he's the good guy, which is interesting. It's an interesting way to.
I think she was the most interesting character in this movie. Like, she has some really good moments like that. So there's the scene where the kids are the first time the kids get captured at the old hut, and it's nighttime, and her and Jake are on the hunt. And that like almost feels like, a Predator movie in some ways.
Yeah.
And like there's some tension there. Like I really enjoyed that part, and some Na'vi recons, whatever they call them, got killed. Like, I don't know, there's some stakes there. I enjoyed that moment.
She's vicious.
She's vicious. And then at the end when she has her moment where she's just like lost it because she's lost her son and she takes Spider, like I enjoyed that moment. She's the most interesting character here, and they're the only two scenes she's in. So,
but that's the problem. She's only in two scenes.
I know.
And then the whole other film, it's like she is her and the tribal leader's wife, who's played by Kate Winslet. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Completely underused.
Yeah, underused. They're both underused. The whole movie, they're just like, you shouldn't. They're kind of just like the foil. They're the ones who are like, oh, you should just screw everyone else, and then both the men are like, no, we got to do what's right. And they're like, oh, dude. And they're spitting and hissing. And I'm like, this is weird.
I was pumped that like Kate Winslet was in it. And like I'd heard all this talk about it. And then I honestly feel like she's a non-character almost. Other than just being like the disagreeing person in the background that's, she's pregnant apparently, but like that's never like, I don't know. It's weird. She's just there.
Yeah, it's very underutilized. Like that's a big problem with all of them, right? There's a lot of characters in this movie that are introduced. There's a lot of kids, and we're supposed to sort of learn to
keep your ponytail in your pants, guys.
And like the whole time, I still don't know any of their names because there's just so many weird. There's Kitty, I think, and that's
the young one.
No, Kitty is
Kitty's
Sigourney Weaver, which I hated.
Yeah, not a fan.
What's up with
the voice was too like. There's too much of a disconnect for someone. Because literally everybody knows Sigourney Weaver. She has a pretty distinct voice. It did not
She's
suit
already a character in the first one. It's like it's just,
all of their hers was really infuriating. Like the weird kind of broken English accent thing was just bizarre. Yeah, no, but the other thing, so there's all these characters because then there's the non-Maori tribe. They're the Maori tribe, but I can't say that for legal reasons. So that tribe's there's 3 or 4 kids there as well that you're supposed to get to know. And it's like, but you don't get to know any of them because again,
no, I don't know any of the names. So
it's all archetypes. You've got the older brother, the younger older brother, the annoying like the little sister, who just is kind of cute and there, and Sigourney Weaver is just like the teen, the teen who doesn't want to do anything. I'm like, shit, like why introduce 4 characters plus more if you're not gonna like do anything with them? I don't get it. And then Spider's in the mix too.
Yeah. Plus Quaritch and his team, the Whalers. Like there's a lot of people to keep track of. Jermaine Clement and does nothing.
Oh, I know.
He does an American accent as well, which is a bit weird.
But here's the thing: is it the fact that Spider's a human and like can just act and not be under the blue skin or anything. Like, is that what makes him stand out the most, or is it just because he's different? But like, you remember Spider. There's no way you don't remember Spider, but you're like, oh, how many kids were there? There's this, that, and there's Spider, and like you remember the name Spider. I don't know any of them. Who died? I don't know. Older one, like the
Not
older
Spider
one.
though. Yeah, not Spider.
Not Spider. Spider didn't die.
Like he's one of the main characters though. Like he's had a lot of screen time in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
And well done. Like he does a good job. I imagine he's in front of a green screen a lot of the time, with people with mocap suits on. Like he's probably not got a lot to work with.
Like I truly wondered watching this. I was just like, how much of this is real? Like, what is real? Is there the scenes in the boat where there's just humans talking and that's all that was actually filmed, and the rest of it is just all CGI? I don't know, but it's
like the CGI was so like it was. You noticed how much better it was than Avatar 1 in this movie. Like
it looked really good.
It looked 100%. Really good. Whether it's going to look good in 10 years' time, it's hard to know.
Not.
It's hard to say.
Tech. But
yeah,
the water is impressive. I feel like the water's a strong choice to go with. To tap in a video game.
Big Jim's obsessed with the water.
Oh, he gets wet. He gets wet.
It felt like Titanic callbacks in this film and everything. But like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's like, to tap it back into it. It reminded me of a video game, like not a specific video game, but watching, I was just like, man, imagine if this was like Zora's Domain. Like I was like, if this was Zora's, like this is like the water level, and this is like, Avatar 2 is the water game where it's all focused on water, and the next one will be the desert one. And like, I don't know, but they're gonna do all this tech into each thing, and I'm like,
I'm keen for them to go to the Fire Nation in the next one.
Yes.
And it'll be like in a volcano.
And they're red. They're red avatars.
Yeah. From what I read, it was filmed in like a tank. So the underwater stuff is underwater. That's why Kate Winslet made a lot of news stories, because she broke a world record for holding your breath for 8.5 minutes, which after the movie I was like, what for?
Yeah, what did she do? What were you watching doing in the water?
I don't remember.
I reckon she just got in there and she's like, look what I can do. And Big Jim's just like, oh. His pupils just expand.
It's like Titanic 2 next. That's what we're doing.
He's like, connect my braid, somebody. But I don't know. The water is good, but like, what else, right? Like, what else is there besides the water in this movie? And in one way, it's cool as to see it in the movies because it's a cinema experience. You go there and you're like, holy crap, this is impressive. But yeah, outside of that, there's nothing, right?
It's a visual spectacle. That's all this film is there's a bunch of scenes where it's like, oh, that looks really cool with the whale next to the avatar in the water and they're holding hands. I'm like, that's a cool shot. But like, I don't know, someone could have painted that too and it would have looked cool. Like, it's like, I don't know, like, it's just a bunch of cool visual things. There's nothing deep or anything to hold on to in this film. It's just, that was cool to look at. Yeah,
like I wonder, the people who find value in it, and I don't mean this to be dismissive, because I'm genuinely just trying to figure out why do so many people love this stuff, right? Like, why does that work to them? What does it do? Do you think there's value in it? Like tell me that there is.
This, like, I'm not going to come out and say this is a really deep movie. This was a spiritual experience for me, and I came out of it a different person. Absolutely not. But I enjoyed this movie more than the first one. Spoilers. And I mean, not by a huge margin, but I think there are some things that kind of work, and they work better than what they... Because there's lots of parallels with the first movie. So obviously you've got your unobtainium equivalent, Amarita.
Yep.
And the harvesting from that whale, like, that scene is pretty brutal. Like, separating it from the pod, it's got the calf with it. Like, that's a lot more interesting than seeing a strip mine of unobtainium.
Yes, that's true.
So, like, that works better for me. Like, and little crab robots that swim around, sick. Like, I kind of like those. They were cool.
So, okay, yeah. Touch on that. Obviously, the first one, it's like the destruction of nature and the planet. And then, like, the second one is, like, destroying animals, like how we harvest animals and, like, hunt them down and all this sort of stuff. I'm with Grant. I really enjoyed the second one more than the first one. Not really enjoyed it in the grand scheme of things, but way too long. Way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long.
I did not need more scenes of the kids learning how to swim. Thank you.
No.
I've had enough.
I legitimately did need a pee for the last hour and a half, and I was like, I don't believe Big Jim that I can just go out and I'll miss nothing, so I have to wait here now. I left the bottom half of my Pepsi Max unattended because I was like, I can't do anymore.
I've never seen so many people flick their phones on during a movie to see the time.
Yes.
I saw it all over the place in the screening I was in. Yep. And I was doing it myself. So
that's the thing. I literally kept raising my Apple Watch, and this is a bad sign. I kept doing. I mean, like, okay, it would have started 5 minutes after the session time was meant to start. That means I'm an hour and 40 minutes in it. That means I've got an hour and 40 minutes. I was like, oh,
yeah. There was a moment I'm like, there is 2 hours left in this movie. What the hell is going to happen?
Legit. I was at the exact same moment. I was like, there is still a full 2 hours left. Oh no, what have I got myself into? I was like, oh, I've drank too much Pepsi Max. It was just like, that's not a good thing. You're not swept away by it and like immersed in it. You're not immersed in it at all because I kept being like, okay, how much longer do I have to go? And then, okay, this should be there. But I'm pretty sure it's not because there should be another 40 minutes left by my calculation. It's just...
Yeah, like... Oh, you go, yeah.
I was just going to say, they give you too much time to look at the scenery. Like, James Cameron's he's too invested in how good this looks that there's a real problem with the pacing of this movie.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I think the whole middle of the film is like his nature documentary. It's him just doing David Attenborough. And be like, the coral on this fictional reef is eaten by these fictional fish that are fictionally here. I'm like, I don't... Like, it's cool that you create... Yeah, like, it's cool you've imagined a world, bro, but you do not need to show
world. It's different.
That's the thing that gets me, right? Because I read something that people were talking about. They're like, oh, it's such a great world he creates. I'm like, it's not. He creates whales. He just creates whales that have 4 fins. They're not revolutionary. It's not interesting on you. It's literally just our world slightly tweaked in every way. The Na'vi are just people, but 10 foot tall or something.
And blue.
And blue. That's it.
Eiffel 65 did it first. You know?
again, coming back to Fury Road, like there's a small moment in Fury Road where they show these creatures walking on stilts in the middle of this desert, and I'm way more interested in what the hell those creatures are than anything I saw in Avatar. Like, he spends way too much time on this stuff that's just slightly different to what we have on Earth. It's not that interesting, and he dwells on it for too long. Give me something small like that that's in the background, and I'm way more interested in it because that feels like a real world. That feels like world building. It doesn't feel like some fake sci-fi documentary. Like, it just
what's Earth like in this timeline? Like, actually, legit, show me Earth. Show me how messed up our planet is, and like show like, oh, that's why they're trying to do all this stuff on another planet because look how bad we've got it now, and show me some weird dystopian future of like how disgusting our water is and how like there's no nature or something. Earth is metal. I don't know. Like, do something different, like, and creative. But like, Conan, I just wanted to ask you a question because you bring this up with Christopher Nolan. Is Big Jim in his wanky phase with Avatar for the last 11 years, and will he ever come out of it? Because it doesn't seem like he will.
Yeah, him and Nolan are super interesting because they are essentially the same figure, right? They're the action block, like the high concept action blockbuster director who is so obsessed with their craft and like what they can do and accomplish that they're kind of getting lost. I think like James Cameron's not like that's interesting. James Cameron's made like 9 or 10 films. Nolan's made many, many more right now. So James Cameron started long before, but he's made almost no films because for 15 years he's been making one movie.
Yeah,
it's really weird, and I don't think he will because he's old. Like James Cameron is how old? He's getting on in years though.
He's got plans for another 5 of these. Like,
they're not gonna like. So he was born in 54. Quick math, somebody is that 68?
He's nearly 70.
He's nearly 70 years old.
Yeah.
He could be Clint Eastwood and making films when he's 90. But I don't think he will because he likes to go underwater so much. He's probably going to drown. And he's got 3 or 4 more avatars he wants to make. Like, I really worry for the legacy of James Cameron, in my mind. I don't think that the public will because I think the public just gets behind this stuff. But in my mind, this is his obsession because he's lost sight of the craft. He's lost sight of filmmaking. Like, this movie, in terms of filmmaking, I don't think it's very good. I think that the action set piece at the end is good. But there are so many like boring shots. I think they reused the same shot of the pilot getting hit with an arrow a couple times.
Yeah, it feels like it.
And there are these
from the first film. They reused it.
like it wouldn't. Yeah, and there's all these awful zoom ins. Like it'll show you a scene, and then it'll like randomly zoom into a piece of action, and it feels really video gamey. It doesn't feel like cinema, for lack of a pretentious phrase.
Mm.
And I just don't think James Cameron cares that much about it anymore. I think he's more interested in being like, I could just show you the ocean.
We
like
should be a bit worried about Big Jim. Like, I think he's lost in Pandora, and he hates planet Earth and wants to escape to Pandora.
Like truly, like I think he's eating his own soybeans that he grows, and he's putting some sort of bad fumigations on there, and he's lost his marbles. Like it makes me sad because I think about what we could have. Like we could have Terminator quality films. We could have Aliens.
Yes.
We could have Titanic, but we're getting this.
Yep.
And that sucks.
Yeah. Do you think, like, he's talked about how expensive this movie was, how much it needs to make to be profitable? Does the studio just let him go on for 9 movies or whatever the plan is, or do they pull him up after the next 2?
I mean,
my theory is...
Does his funding running out? Not sure.
He said that he filmed the third one with this. So the third one is filmed.
Yes.
I think no matter what, the third one comes out.
For sure.
But yeah.
It just trips me out. I'm just like, what? It's not like he's going out to all these locations. Like, what are you filming? Like, I know that it's motion capture and it's these people in these booths, but like, why
CGI is expensive. CGI is very expensive.
100% expensive, but like, why did this movie take so long to come out?
Well, speaking of getting his Big Jim, he literally owns Sam Worthington though as well. He's been shackled into like his basement for 15 years. And Sigourney Weaver's probably the same. Like I just think he's kidnapped them.
He's rebirthed her. She's a kid. Yeah. Like,
and Warner Brothers is just like, we'll pay you millions of dollars to not sue us for these crimes. No, I think if 2 and 3 don't blow us out of the water, we see the end, because it's what you're seeing in the industry. Like movies are taking less risks. Movies are getting smaller, except for the biggest things. You've only got big franchise IP that can take this risk. And Avatar is now a franchise, and it's bankable IP. But once we see that turn, I don't think Warner Brothers is in any position to be like, we can continue to foot close to $1 billion to make your films. Like I don't think it's there.
It's Disney now, isn't it? It's not
Warner Brothers.
It's Fox,
20th Century
which is bought by Disney.
Oh, it's 20th Century. Sorry, my bad. Yeah,
which Disney owns. So Disney's got more money.
Warner Brothers wouldn't be stayed by this. They'd be like, no, abandon ship.
No, so you're right. They do have more money, but at the same time, they've also just brought in a new CEO who,
who was the old CEO.
But so he's not as I don't know. Like I just think that all talk about it is that there's concern about the industry, right? And everyone is cutting corners, everyone is tightening.
Yeah.
So I don't see a world where, unless this movie is like, it makes 5-6 billion, becomes the highest grossing film of all time, that we see 3, 4, and 5.
And I just don't see the next movie doing bigger numbers than this movie, right?
No.
I feel like I don't feel like I've heard anything like overwhelmingly positive about this movie. It didn't really have a huge cliffhanger that you're going to have to see to know how the Avatar trilogy ends. They definitely leave some threads open for sure, and you can kind of see where they're headed with Sigourney Weaver's character, with Quaritch's character. But, it's not like these aren't these characters that I've beloved like they are Marvel characters that I watched for 24 movies before I saw them die, sort of thing. Like, it's not... Yeah. It's not going to do bigger numbers than the first movie. There's just no way.
Mystery or intrigue. That's the thing. You can basically see, this is what's going to happen with this character. There's nothing like, oh, wow, I wonder what that meant. I wonder what that weird thing meant, or what that means for the future of this like franchise or anything like that. I don't think this film cracks the top 5 in the box office. I would be surprised if it definitely won't crack the top 3. And I really hope, just for like the state of cinema and like what went into it, I really hope it can't surpass Top Gun. Maverick was all practical effects, was all about filmmaking and all this stuff, and like they're basically polar opposite films in a way, but it's very similar. Like big blockbusters in the same year, but it's like Top Gun is what I want to see. Like that film was, man, I love that film so much. Like I want to talk about Top Gun again. Like it's just
they occupy the same space. in that what they're doing and what purpose they're serving in the world. But you're right, they're the complete opposite approaches to that.
Yeah.
And bringing it back to Marvel, because we have to. That's just who we are.
Yep.
Like Marvel it's closer to the Marvel approach than it is to the Top Gun approach of just CGI and trying to keep you in and trying to make you say, look, you need to come and see all the films I'm going to release because there's got to be several more. And so you want to get lost in it. And it's trying to make you feel like you're part of this world with these parasocial relationships. And I just think that's a really bad, like they say, look, the state of cinema, it's a bad direction for it to go. Like I feel bad if I want Big Jim to fail and I want these huge movies to flop. But I think
to get his head out of the water.
Give Jim an indie budget again. Give me another Terminator.
Exactly. Legit.
Who knows? I want to mention a couple other things. I did enjoy, like they talk about the whales, being really intelligent and stuff, and then you see this whale go to town on this ship, flopping up on there, button away harpoons with its hard shell. I enjoyed that. It's real dumb, but
that was cool.
If you're going to make out that these whales are super intelligent and can tell stories, make them do intelligent things, which is what this one did. I thought that was cool. I had fun with it.
I was like, I was giggling in the cinema when it's like...
Yeah, so was I.
No, when she was having the conversation with it, she's like, oh, your son's beautiful, and the whale's like, just... And it's like, oh, that's great. How have you been? And I'm like, what the hell is this? And they're just like having these full-on conversations. It was just really silly. It was really, really silly. And the whole conversation...
I still think it works better than the white tree in the first movie, though.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I won't take that from like you're having like a living creature. Whales are beautiful. There's something to invest there. And when you see the whole, it's got its fin torn off, and they're like you said, the harvesting scene's pretty full on. So they just take that, and the rest of it's wasted. But I don't know, there's some choices where it's like they are so smart, they're philosophers. I'm like, they're not. Yeah. They're clearly not. They walk around. It's like they don't even, when they're getting attacked, they just kind of let it happen. I'm like, I'm sorry, but give me the whole, they're peaceful creatures, but you can't be that smart if you're just like, oh no, I'm getting killed. Oh no.
I'm going away from the herd. It's like, no.
It's not smart, guys.
Philosophize. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But no, I did enjoy that scene, especially like using the hard shell thing, like it has a mouth open and it's just like boom, deflects. And I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Cuts the guy's fin off with the rope.
Oh, that was like the only thing that popped everyone in the cinema, where everyone was like, oh, I'd like jumped up, like when his arm flew out as well. It was just that was cool.
That looked really CGI.
It looked really bad, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was like,
it was a bit more noticeable there because it's a person. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know. How many times do these kids need to be chained to a railing? That bothered me.
Like, they even make the joke about it.
That over and again. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Again, that was funny. I enjoyed that joke. But
it's ironic to me that even in a movie that has like blue kids and makes kids not look like kids, they're still annoying kids and annoying kid actors. I'm like, just casting kids is just stop having kids as characters.
That's why they casted Sigourney Weaver as one of them. And you complain about that.
And that was so
Can't
much
make
better.
you happy.
It was just off-putting. Like, and that whole thing where they're like, she has been randomly birthed by Grace's dead avatar. No one understands how it could happen. Anywho, let's just ignore that for a while.
It was probably the creepy dude that does the observations.
Yeah.
That's a creepy plot line if that's how it all goes. It seems to me like it's the, immaculate birth. It's the rebirth of Gaia.
100%.
But it's
and the child's going to be going to unite the planet basically with her powers. So
I mean, I really hope it's just she has epilepsy, like he says. It's just like, oh crap. She's
a pretty interesting diagnosis amongst the people who like see hallucinations regularly when they connect into things and stuff. Yeah, it's like no, it's epilepsy. Right,
it's classic symptoms. Yeah, you need those science guys who are just like no fun. Yeah. They're also weird to have.
Turn it off and on again.
Yeah, they have like 2 scenes where they're just like medical advice guys.
Child out of nowhere.
No. And the other thing is just the dialogue's terrible in this movie. Like, I'm going to say I think I prefer the original. And a big part of that is the script. The script's not good in the first one either, but the dialogue and like the back and forth in this and the jokes are like first draft written by a 6-year-old, bad.
Yeah, Luke, I know you don't love the script of Aliens, but give me the banter of the Aliens Marines any day over any characters in this movie. Like the group of blue Marines in this.
Hoorah!
So dull.
Get some.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have 3 words.
Literally, like they bought like something online for some free samples of like Marine dialogue and just like kept playing it. That's it.
Basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, real bad.
I don't know. I feel like it could just be, newism. I just watched Avatar 2. But like these films, the plot wise and writing and dialogue, everything about them, there's nothing memorable there. It's just a visual feast for the eyes. And that way, number 2 is much better for me just because it was impressive. While the first one, I was like, this didn't hold up well. And I remember watching it the first time. Like when I first watched it, I was like, oh, this is cool. But I was like, this didn't blow me away. Like that first Avatar didn't blow me away, like with its like animation or anything like that. Like, I don't know. Had the uncanny valley back then, and it definitely does now. So
yeah. Did you guys relate to the father-son story? That's clearly a big focus here.
I mean, as a father, like what happens in this film, like it gets to you more than what it would normally in anything. I'm like, oh, that's sad, but there's nothing.
He's such a bad parent.
There's no bond there. Like it's not like, oh wow, no, that's that kid. That's the one he had this thing. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there between them. I don't see any good relationship there between them. It's just so. We walk here now, and I'm interacting with my kids by telling them to do this. There's no meaningful conversations or anything. I feel like, but yeah.
He treats his kids like Marines, which I get. That's the whole point. But I don't feel like there's ever any real... There's no character growth from that, right? Like, he doesn't really change at the end of the movie. He loses his son. That's sad. My wife was crying. Didn't quite hit me that hard. I can't bring myself to care about the blue people. But...
racist.
Yeah, I'm a very racist. Speciesist.
Speciesist, my bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's the one scene at the end where he has the memory dream.
That's the only thing that almost got me.
Yeah, the fishing, and he's kind of like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I'm just happy to see you," and Natari's there as well. And I was like, "Oh, that's sweet." Yeah, that was a moment of emotion. I'm like, cool.
But that only hits if you're a father. I feel like 100% because I just straight away picture me and my kid. Like it's just
But I'm also like, that would have been great 3 hours ago. It's a shame.
Yeah, why was there not more at the start of the movie between these two? Like, have a punch. Like it. Yeah, I don't know.
You mean because the montage of him telling you how often he and his wife boned to have 4 kids? It wasn't enough for you?
Yeah, so we've got a voiceover to tell us there's an important.
That was 3 hours ago. I forget all of the start by the end of that movie.
There's pretty much a movie. I'm sure he made Avatar 1.5 and never released it because there is a movie in there somewhere between these 2 movies.
Just 6 hours of that. Yep. I can't wait until at the end he releases like 30 hours of footage and he's just like, this is Avatar 1 through 6. How I envision it as just one giant vessel.
It's just a documentary. It's just literally like a camera placing a tree, just watching them about their day. David Attenborough makes a camera and just starts talking like, the Na'vi do this. And like, it'd be great.
Imagine how much more interesting it would be if this was shot as a documentary. Like if it was literally like a mockumentary or something. And just like, here's a world and we're just looking around it. And it's just like, Big Jim himself is like, I'm exploring it.
Budget with the writers of What We Do in the Shadows, a mockumentary style with the Na'vi. I am there. I am sold.
I don't know that it works. Like these, that's the other thing that annoys me about these movies. They're so self-serious, and there is not a lick of humor in them.
No,
which is weird because James Cameron's got a funny bone.
Yeah, he's
like
had
Aliens,
funny characters in movies before.
He doesn't, man.
Yeah.
Like even Jermaine Clement literally is the driest character in the show, in the movie.
Like,
it's such a strange casting choice, right? Like, I guess I was trying to figure out why he's in it because it's got Brendan Cowell as well. So it's got these.
There's a lot of Kiwi actors in it.
Yeah, and so it's got like an Australian Kiwi group here, and I guess you just go to Jermaine Clement, but
they filmed in Australia, didn't they?
And New Zealand
and Pandora.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's like, why Jermaine Clement of all people? Like, it's very strange to cast this notorious funny man and have no humor. I don't understand.
He didn't even sing once. Terrible.
3 stars.
All right, that's the first 2 Avatar movies. I guess in 12 months' time, we'll be back here doing this again.
I can't. I don't know if I can.
You guys have anything else you want to say about Avatar?
Like, legitimately too long. Like,
yes,
just way
honestly,
too long.
2.5 hours would have been pushing it, but I would have been okay with. 2.5 hours would have been fine for his epics. 3 hours in this economy, in this day and age, not acceptable.
Places to be, things to do.
Yep.
Like, it's just an interesting quote here. Apparently, because these films are such massive undertakings, James Cameron's divided the scripts between like a whole group of different people to write them. So I'm really interested to see where that goes, if we actually finally get a good film in one of them, because it's not Cameron writing it.
You know, it's always good when scripts get split up between multiple people to write, right?
Yep.
Yeah, look, we don't have a good legacy, but I'm willing to take anything I can at this stage.
He's chasing the unobtainium.
Yes.
That's such a stupid name.
Great name, clever name.
All right. Next pod, we are doing our 2022 year in review. So we'll be talking about TV and movies and media, probably just mostly TV and movies.
My favorite pictures and NFTs of 2022.
I have a book I want to talk about, but I don't know whether it's appropriate. So
there was a screenshot from this.
So do I.
That's my favorite piece. Yeah, that's my view. Year in review.
Speaking of books, The Taste of Iron. This podcast was brought to you by written by Conan Clark, available on Amazon. Pick it up for Christmas.
Yes,
I
can be there in time.
Get in now before the Taste of Iron #9 comes out, and because you won't know what's going on, you need to get in.
Starring Sam Worthington as well.
I could see Sam Worthington being in this book. Not as the leader, obviously, but as a minor character that dies. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you could. I'm happy with that.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. If you enjoyed this podcast, you might also enjoy our other podcast, Bonus XP. We'll be doing another one of those soon, no doubt, talking about our games of the
Game
year
Awards
and the Game Awards.
Yep.
Yeah, find us on socials. Check us, rate us on Spotify, please. Helps us so much. And thanks for joining us.
I see you.
I'm Blue. Duppity duppa die.